In graphing radical functions, square root functions, we should first realize that y equals the square root of x looks like this. So we're supposed to know that. We're supposed to know that the domain is all real numbers x such that x is greater than or equal to 0, and the range is all real numbers y such that y is greater than or equal to 0. So any transformations of this function, we're going to see that we use those same transformations that we've been using all year long. So let's go ahead and put the original function here. So this is the original function, y equals radical x, and I'll put that in blue. Okay. The other thing you want to remember when you're doing transformations is that you want to reflect x, reflect y, shift x, and shift y. So reflect about the x-axis, and then you look for ways to reflect about the y-axis. Then you look to shift in the x direction. Then you look finally to shift in the y direction. So where do we find whether or not we reflect about the x-axis? Well, we find that if we see a minus sign in front of the radical, then we're going to reflect about the x-axis. But we can see we don't have a minus sign there, so we're not going to reflect about the x-axis. What do we look for next? We look for, are we reflecting about the y-axis? Well, then we look to see if there's a minus sign in front of the x underneath the radical, and there's not, so we're not going to reflect about the y-axis either. The next thing we do, I hope I have enough colors here, we look to see if we shift in the x direction. Well, whatever number is being subtracted from x is the number of units that we're going to shift in the x direction. So we see that the h value here, h is 1, so we're going to move 1 unit to the right. So we're going to take this guy and we're going to move it 1 unit to the right, and that's what that would look like. So the pink graph is the shifted graph of y equals radical x, 1 unit to the right. And finally, we have the need to figure out, do we shift in the y direction? Well, yeah, we shift in the y direction because the k value is 3, so we're going to move this pink graph 3 units up, and it's our last one, so I'm not going to do that in a yellow color. We're going to go 1, 2, 3 units up, and that point is the important point to understand the coordinates of. That point has the coordinates 1, 3, and the graph would look like that. Oops, it looks like that. It keeps going up. I don't want you to think that it starts going down or that it has an asymptote. It continues to rise forever. It just doesn't rise very fast. And then the domain then would be all real numbers x such that x is greater than or equal to 1. So there's 1. So x, the domain is all real numbers x such that x is greater than or equal to 1. And the range would be all real numbers y such that y is greater than or equal to the lowest y value, which is 3. And there you have it.